to take a look at some of our past successes with our last interim assessment data. So I had a chance to take a look, and you guys went from 52% proficient on your first interim assessment to now at mid-year we're at 65% as a grade, which is awesome. Specific standard that I want to kind of point out is character traits. When we looked at RL 3.3, we went from 56% to 74%. So I just want you to think about for just a second, what teacher actions did you take in order to get to this goal? What did you do more of in order to get to what those teacher actions are? Really think about your teacher actions.
I think we worked really hard with reteaching the standards. We use something called pathways in our classroom, and so as we're teaching a new standard, we always spiral review. And so character traits, after we taught it explicitly, we did it in small groups, then the students then do spiral review on their own with the practice, and we've learned this year that that has really, really helped with their comprehension and their grasp of the concepts. So the learning pathways definitely have helped us this year. And engaging. Character traits was a really fun standard to teach, so there's many different things you could do with character traits. So we really related it to themselves as well. We did a bunch of activities where they came up with their own character traits and things like that. So I think that really helped with their comprehension as well.
What do you think, Maddie?
I think the pathways in that review definitely helps them kind of keep the skill fresh. So by the time they got to this interim, they had been practicing it. It wasn't, oh, we did that a couple months ago and now I've forgotten it. They've still seen it.
That's good. So one of the things that Alyssa and I kind of, I guess, identified was increase in guided reading, where you've also done your reteach, more practice opportunities, and exactly what you just said, the spiral curriculum through your pathways. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so now we want to take a moment to dive into, or go back into your language standards, your RI 3.4, the L 3.4, because we see kind of across the board that that's an area that we need to work on. So last interim we were at 55% on this and 59% on the second interim. So we didn't see much growth in our language standards from the first interim to the second interim. On our quick checks, we were at 69%, which still is not at a place of mastery. So, and we know what's the percentage of the language standards on the EOGs?
Huge.
Right.
For RL 3.4, it's 16%.
Yep.
So the language is huge.
Yeah. So we want to jump back in. Now I'm only going to give you 1 minute to really refresh because we've already unpacked this standard, but I want to give you just 1 minute to kind of annotate some things now that you are looking at it from a different lens. So on this chart, you're going to go through, we've already broken apart the standard, and this is just a no-show chart that you've already created. So just kind of go through and annotate that. I'm going to give you a second document as well to annotate, and I'm going to give you another minute to do that. So we'll take a total of about 2 minutes. Here's your, Alyssa had you guys go through your interim assessment data, or your interim assessment, and she put each of the questions from the interim assessment, and you guys actually went through and determined what did the student need to know and show in order to answer and be successful with that question. So just refresh your memory on that as well as you are reading. Does everybody have a copy?
Yeah, so it's 2 pages, so.
fun for you. There you go. I know. Okay, so kind of just what jumps out at you as far as our no-show chart? Is there anything that we need to add? Is there anything missing?
I don't think so. Last time we talked about for the show, not just marking their evidence for a vocabulary word, but we really talked about last time is how do they know? What was the clue? What was the strategy that they used? And that's the evidence we're going to be starting to look for. So pulling out those multiple strategies, but really having them annotate and mark down how they know the meaning of the word and not just highlighting the word itself or the clues around, but then annotating what was my strategy? How did I get to that?
Okay, that's good. Let's add that to our no-show chart.
Strategy did the student use?
Anything else that you feel like we need to add that you don't see? Maddie, is there anything else you think that we need to add?
The one I'm thinking of, Dean, when we talked about the fiction part of it, was looking at what the character, looking at what the character,
The thoughts,
the
actions.
thoughts, the
Okay.
actions to lead us to, as whatever they're saying, if there's that vocabulary word, we have to look at what the character has been so far in order to help us with how they're saying.
So
certain
tracking the
vocabulary words.
characters.
Tracking the characters, you can just say fast for right now.
Alright, so now let's dig into some actual student work. And we're gonna start off with, because we've already taken this assessment and we've already gone through it, what I really want you to do is just take a moment just to kind of refresh it. We have some student work here, and do you have your teacher test, your exemplar test? Okay, great. So we're just gonna kind of look at Ms. Verdeen's right now. So the teachers take their assessments, take the kids' assessments prior to, a few weeks prior to actually starting the new unit of instruction. And what the teachers do is they will identify many lessons that they need to be able to teach while they're taking their assessments, okay? So I wanna kinda just dig into this a little bit, actually your assessments here, the mock. And high student work.
This would be considered we pulled these two for high from your thing, from your block, and then we pulled 2 medium and 2 lows.
Okay, so then given what we know and given what we're expecting students to show, I want you to take a minute, I'm only gonna give you 1 minute, to look at what these students did on the areas of, in the area of your language standards, okay? So I'll just give you a minute to look at that. And these are our mastery students. So compare the student assessments to the list, our no-show list of what we just went through. Okay, does everybody understand what you're gonna do? Okay, so look at, compare your high student assessment to your no-show chart. What strategies did they use? What evidence do you see?
And if you're looking for specific questions that go to that standard, your sheet, you hold that up, Maddie? Yeah, that will work, as well as that has a question number
Okay.
per.
Parentheses.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you the medium student work to look at.
I'm sorry.
She's looked at these too.
Did you need to see this page?
return back into that question,
You'll
yeah.
look on that one, okay.
I think the first question was 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's time. All right, so how does the student exemplar compare to the language of the standard and the expectation of the standard? What are you noticing when you chart this?
We still have a lot of gaps that we need to correct and reteach them about.
Tell me specifically, what are you seeing?
So,
What did you notice the high students doing?
our high students are not marking up the text at all.
Okay,
And
so-
that's a general issue, you know, I've seen throughout my years of teaching is high students, they know it, so why do I have to show it type of thing. So really making sure that they understand that it's important that even though we know they might know it, how do we know it? They need to be able to show us, this is how I got to my answer. It's still important for us as the teacher to know how they got there. And so reiterating that to them, it's still important to go back, check, and it builds their confidence. So I'm not sure with our high kids if they're as confident as they could be because they think, oh, I know it, and they'll just mark it. But if we use these strategies, if you're showing us, then you're confident that you've made it to the right answer.
So let's take it on the different side. Are the students using any strategies that perhaps you haven't taught, that they might offer us in order to add to our exemplar? Are the high students doing anything that we can take from? Like, are they using any strategies that we can actually take and perhaps incorporate it into our expectation?
I don't think, when we were looking at it, I don't think there's any new
I don't know if we can tell
strategies.
yet.
That's what I was thinking. It's not
Because
obvious.
they may underline where it is in the text,
Right.
but there's no annotation around it.
That's what I was just thinking when I was looking at how this student underlined gloomily, but they didn't say what that meant. There's no annotations. He just saw it or she saw it and just underlined it.
And it seemed to be attached to, it was using a question, so I underline it here because that's what I'm supposed to do. so-
Right.
But I've already probably gone on to.
So you're not really seeing any evidence of any new strategies or any annotation there, so, okay. Now, I want you to take a moment, keep those assessments in front of you. And now we